You are certainly welcome to review that on your own, but there's not a lot of gems to be mined out of people's names, so I think we can pass over those. Do you agree? All right, who wants to start reading? Chapter 46.
I will start. Israel traveled with all that he had until he came to Beersheba, where he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God called to Israel in a vision at night, Jacob, Jacob. Jacob said, I am here. He said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will certainly bring you back again, and Joseph's hand will close your eyes.
Jacob set out for Beersheba, and the sons of Israel transported Jacob their father, their little ones, and their wives in the carts that Pharaoh had sent to transport them. They took their livestock and their property that they had acquired in the land of Canaan and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his grandsons, his daughters and his granddaughters. So he brought all his offspring with him into Egypt. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt, that is, Jacob and his sons.
Is that the part we're skipping?
Yeah, skip to verse 26.
So 16 started 16 then?
No, 26.
26.
Oh, 26. Okay. The total number of souls who came with Jacob into Egypt, who were his direct descendants, besides Jacob's sons' wives, was 66. The sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2 souls. The total number of the souls in the house of Jacob, who came into Egypt, was 70.
Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to lead the way to Goshen. And so they arrived in the land of Goshen. Joseph prepared his chariot and went to meet Israel, his father, in Goshen. He approached him, hugged him, and wept on his shoulder for a long time. Israel said to Joseph, Now I'm ready to die, since I have seen you face to face, and you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's family, I will go up and speak with Pharaoh. I will tell him, my brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me. These men are shepherds. They make their living taking care of livestock, and they have brought with them their flocks and their herds and all that they have. This is what you should say when Pharaoh summons you and asks, what is your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers. Ask for the right to live in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is repulsive to the Egyptians.
And Joseph went and told Pharaoh, my father and my brothers have come from the land of Canaan with their flocks, their herds, and all that they own, and now they are in the land of Goshen. He took 5 of his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, what is your occupation? They answered Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. They said to Pharaoh, we have come to reside as aliens in the land, for your servants have no pasture for their flocks, because the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen.
Pharaoh responded to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is open to you. Arrange for your father and your brothers to dwell in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen. If you know any capable men among them, then put them in charge of my livestock. Joseph brought Jacob his father and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days and years of your life? Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days and years of my wandering are 130 years. The days and years of my life have been few and full of trouble. and they have not been as many as the days and years of the lives of my fathers during the days of their wandering. Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them property in the land of Egypt, in the best part of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Joseph provided his father, his brother, and all his father's household with food based on the number of their families.
There was no food in all the land because the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan grew weak because of the famine. Joseph collected all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan as payment for the grain that they purchased. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's palace. When all the money in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan had been spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die right in front of your eyes? Look, our money is running out." So Joseph said, "Give me your livestock, and I will give you food for your livestock if your money is gone."
They brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses, and for the flocks, and for the herds, and for the donkeys. He supplied them with food for that year in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was ended, they came to him during the second year and said to him, "You will not hide from my lord the fact that our money is all spent, and the herd of livestock belongs to my lord. My lord conceived that we have nothing left but our bodies and our lands. Why should we die right in front of your eyes, both we and our land? First of all, our land in exchange for bread, we along with our land will serve Pharaoh. Let us eat, so that we may live and not die, so that the land will not be desolate."
So Joseph purchased all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh, because every man among the Egyptians sold his field, because the famine had been spread, and the land became Pharaoh. As for the people, he made them all servants from one end of the territory of Egypt all the way to the other end of it. The land that belonged to the priest was the only land that he did not purchase, because the priest had a regular allotment from Pharaoh and ate from the allotment that Pharaoh gave them. That is why they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Since I have purchased you and your land today for Pharaoh, here is seed for you to sow the land. This is what you shall do at the harvest. Give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 will be your own share, which you can use as seed to sow the field and as food for yourselves, for everyone in your household, and for your little ones."
They said, "You saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants." Joseph made it a regulation concerning the farmland in Egypt to this day that Pharaoh should receive a fifth of the produce. Only the land of the priests did not become Pharaoh. Israel lived Go ahead. Israel lived in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they acquired possessions for themselves there. They were fruitful and multiplied greatly. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. So the days of Jacob and the years of his life were 147 years. The time drew near that Israel must die. So he called his son Joseph and said to him, "If now I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly with the truth and truthfully with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt, but when I rest with my fathers, you will carry me out of Egypt and bury me in the burial place." He said, "I will do as you have said." He said, "Swear to me," and he swore to him. Israel bowed himself on the bedpost with him.
All right. Anything occur to you guys while we were reading through that?
it was quite a famine. It was quite a desolate time.
Mhm.
If Joseph hadn't been warned by God and made all those plans and taken those steps, there would have been a lot of wailing and grief.
Mhm.
I think Joseph did a really good job for Pharaoh, getting them all those, the money and the livestock and the gift of their crops that they were gonna grow.
Oh, the land.
Yeah.
It was interesting, the landlord was only getting 1/5.
Turned all the inhabitants to serfdom.
The people volunteered for serfdom for a 20% tax rate. I pay a 30% tax rate. Who are the serfs? I think that's an important point, simply because we have a tendency as modern humans to look back at these times and think about how backwards these people are, is we have little rectangles of plastic in our pockets that can bring us the world's information, and in that way we are more advanced. However, taxes for these serfs were lower than someone who, I'm fine, but I don't think anyone would argue that me and my family are rich, would you?
No, but it says
But
that
the taxes are,
they sold their land here, and so some of them didn't have any land.
owning land is a relatively recent thing.
Well, they owned them back then.
They owned it and gave it away happily, and yet still got to keep it and work it for a 33% lower tax rate than a middle-class family pays now. Ownership of property for these people was largely irrelevant, because whether it was Pharaoh's property or their property, they were doing the same thing with it.
Well, they still had the incentive to work because they were getting a good deal.
Yeah,
They
these
weren't
people,
just given it or they
for-
would have given up.
and ancient China, I mean, more recent than this, but still pretty ancient, the tax rate there was 11% for the serfs. They divided the field into 9 squares. The middle square was for whoever the king happened to be at the time. The other 8 squares were for the people. Any of you would like to pay an 11% tax rate right now? Coming up on April 15th? That wouldn't be so bad, would it? It's just interesting to me to see, because we think about how, oh, back then life would have been so tough, it would have been so bad. Well, yeah, it would have been different, but there definitely were some advantages.
Could have been important on how much the actual yield was as to how much 11% would be.
Well, that's relevant in all cases.
Mhm.
Still getting 89% of your crops to do with as you please. Some for seed, some for food, the rest for sale. It's worth thinking about. Modern people, and this isn't us, this is people of literally every age, tend to think they're smarter than whoever came before them, which I argue is evidence of how stupid we are as people, because none of us are smarter. In fact, I think people are getting dumber. Think about it in school. You still have some of your lessons memorized from way back then, right? Do you know any kids who memorize things?
Look it up on Google.
Yep. Serving in Michigan, the biggest fight I ever had in catechism class was with kids trying to get them to memorize things. You could just look it up. No, you can't.
What you put in your head,
Yeah.
make it stay.
Having a conversation, having thoughts to yourself, and you don't have something memorized, you're not going to be able to access it. In fact, you're not even going to know where to look. We're not getting smarter as a civilization. Technology is advancing and it's making us dumber. That's just the way it is. A healthy respect for our forebears is a good thing. Anything else jump out at you?
Well, I noticed that Israel's descendants were multiplying greatly. It took Pharaoh a while to notice that, right?
Well, there's no TV at night.
I'm also interested, it comes up every now and then when, in this case, when Jacob asked Joseph to make a vow, put your hand under my thigh. That's come up, of course, other times. What's interesting is that
Do you know what that means?
not for sure. No, obviously I don't.
I will demonstrate. Yep,
Pretty intimate.
it is.
Very
It's
intimate.
about as vulnerable as a person can be. It's about as close as a person can be. Why
Anybody
that
else,
be?
nobody know that?
I read it in the
No.
People's Bible.
I could have given a long-winded explanation and not come close to approaching it. You place your hand basically where the groin tendon is on one side or the other and swear an oath.
Probably something only men did.
Of the recorded instances of this happening, as far as I'm aware, it's only between men, yes. You're scowling at me.
Just thinking along with that with, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Back in United States, made a vow with him once, he been at, Chester. I can't think of the name of that.
Yeah, it's a Middle Eastern thing, but,
Yeah.
they're.
Ahmadinejad?
But
Ahmadinejad.
Abdu-Ben-Job. Didn't Jacob do that with the angel that he wrestled with? Or was some mistake?
Wasn't an angel he wrestled with.
Well, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus, but the Bible calls it the angel of God. There's several times in the
Yeah.
Bible when that's
Mainly in Genesis.
covenant.
In fact, I can't think of a time outside of the book of Genesis where this took place. That doesn't mean there isn't one, just means it's not coming to my mind right now.
Interesting, they were wearing robes in those days, that kind of.
Maybe in Ruth. Or not, I want to say Esther or Ruth, one of those. I think in Ruth, but I'm not sure.
Possible,
Said
there
no.
were
I'll look it
oaths
up.
given in Ruth, but I don't remember if there was
I
thigh
don't remember if it
touching.
was a thigh thing or a shoe or. And he took off his shoe, the other guy that could have inherited the. Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall thigh grasping
I'll
at
have to
that
look it
point.
up, that's why I said
Yeah.
maybe.
It's entirely possible. I haven't reviewed the book of Ruth too intensely lately. I've been more drawn towards Ezekiel and Daniel. They're a bit more apocalyptic, and that seems more fitting. Anything else? You see, this is why I ask these questions. We go in directions I don't always anticipate, and it's usually better that way. Even though it drives at least one member of this church nuts that I refuse to stick to an outline. No one in here. Yeah, I do. Even in my sermons, I refuse to stick to an outline. I write an outline.
He refuses to stick to an outline.
I write an outline, but if I got something else to say, I'll say that instead. Works somewhere in the high 90% of the time.
You go with God's guidance.
Yeah. I am not arrogant enough to claim divine inspiration for anything I say.
Really? I didn't know that would be arrogant.
But I do know this much. That serving in China especially, I came up with some objectively brilliant answers to some objectively difficult questions. And I can tell you this much, that wasn't me talking. It's okay to recognize brilliance in yourself, as long as you also recognize why the brilliance is there. In yourself, not of yourself. The prepositions become important. Okay, if there's nothing else, let's take a look at the list of questions I came up with. Where have you heard of Beersheba before?
Not even if she's transferred.
Near there, yes. It's also where he swore an oath with Abimelech to have peace between them. This has been a place of rather important things happening, and it was probably fitting that that's where Jacob decided to stop. Why did God appear to Jacob there?
Probably in line with the covenant he made to him. Not the Savior.
Well, where was Jacob currently?
He wasn't in the promised land.
Beersheba's in the promised land.
Oh, yeah.
But you're on the right track. He was about to leave the promised land. The land sworn to his fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac. And leaving the place God swore to give you probably comes with a certain amount of trepidation. Am I doing the right thing? Well, God was saying to Jacob, yeah, no, this is the right thing to do. Go with my blessing. So why send Judah ahead of him? I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with the line of the Savior. Judah didn't have the promise of the line of the Savior yet. When have we recently heard Judah?
You offer to stay behind, run, instead of keeping Benjamin.
He offered his own offspring as guarantors of Benjamin's safety. He had clearly taken some form of a leadership position amongst the brothers. So it was only right that this man who had stepped up to the plate before be the one to go off ahead and prepare the way a little bit. For example, I mean, this is something that still happens today. Who are the first members of this congregation to meet me?
Leaders.
Yeah, well, Mike and Myron at least. Yeah, they prepared the way for me and for you guys. We still do this. Leaders move first. And that's what Judah was doing. So why include these interactions with Pharaoh?
Because that's the one, Judah's the one that took on leadership. It showed respect.
I think that's a really important answer. It showed respect. What does Joseph say the Egyptians' attitudes are towards shepherds?
Yep.
Yeah, they gross. But do you see a hint of that repulsion in anything Pharaoh says or does? Not a drop. Which means one of two things. A, Joseph is overblowing it. Or B, and more likely, Pharaoh was treating them with respect in a way he never would have acted for anyone else. These people, by association with Joseph, have become respected and important as well. Okay, we talked about 5, 6, and 7. What was unusual about the lives of Joseph's family?
In Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
just that they had the best area, most productive area to live in.
That was unusual, but even still, there's something I'd argue that's even more unusual.
They could live the way they wanted to live.
Yeah. Would have been unusual back then had they had a TV.
It multiplied pretty fast.
No, along those lines, they gained possession. Now, they gained possessions. Now, all of you in some way or another have done stuff related to farming in your lives, right? And you've experienced droughts before, right? Are droughts when your farm starts to really rake in the dough? You have the good years and save up to get through the drought years, right? But not these guys. They gained possessions at a time when everybody was losing things. Tells you something, doesn't it?
They were politicians?
They blessed.
Oy vey.
Well, and they got the best land. They had to have displaced some people. You think there'd be some problems?
When
They still
Pharaoh,
sound like politicians.
when Pharaoh's keeping you, when Pharaoh says move, and Pharaoh owns all the land,
I know.
you move.
Mhm. It's amazing that it worked out so well.
And what was Jacob's dying wish? What was the last thing he wanted?
Do not bury me in Egypt.
Yep, take me home, put me with my father. All right, anything further on any of this? Seeing nothing, we'll close there and we will continue with chapter 48 in 2 weeks. We have a council meeting next week. Myron, you better get your butt here for that.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you guys doing?
So sorry. Older every day.
Yeah, I know the feeling.